Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal Podcast. I am your host, Scott Brady, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Matt Scott. Now, we spent some time interviewing Chase Eckert. Now, Chase is a very cool adventure motorcyclist. He's an author, editor. He works in the motorcycle community testing products, and he's recovered from a very serious injury on his motorcycle in Death Valley, and he is now taking a new lease on life and getting ready to start by riding around the world. Now, Chase has got some great insights, some really positive stories around his experience. He's also shared a little bit about his motorcycle ride in the wintertime up towards the Arctic Circle and how he barely survived that. But Chase is filled with great insights and adventures, so please enjoy our conversation with Chase Eckert. And a special thanks to Onyx for their support of this week's podcast. Going further on your adventures is about having the right tools. The Onyx Off-Road app's intuitive maps make it easy to find trails and disperse camping. And their offline maps give you full GPS navigation capabilities, even without cell coverage. Personally, I use Onyx for every trip in North America because I always know who owns or manages the land that I'm traveling on. It also makes for a reliable track recorder, and I can filter the trails based on the four-wheel drive or motorcycle that I'm using. On my most recent trip in the Quartermaster, I used the Onyx to find trails near where I was staying in Joshua Tree. I used the difficulty rating and the elevation to determine which trails are best suited to the vehicle and the weather. Thanks again, Onyx, for your support of the Overland Journal Podcast.
So we're here with Chase Eckert doing a podcast.
Hey,
the
buddy.
cool thing about this one is, one, he's a great guy, but he's riding basically from here to an event and then to Ushuaia. He's doing the whole Pan Am.
Yeah.
On a KTM.
I think this is the first time we've had a guest that is essentially starting their around the world trip from the podcast, which is pretty awesome. Thank you.
I was thinking about that on the way over here. And it's kind of cheating because I already went the Alaska portion, but I was like, yeah, no, I'm counting this. I'm
it's a new bike though, right?
Yeah, new to me. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. I mean, you have a long history of travel and adventure, and you write for some really interesting outlets, so you've got some great content out there in the world. You know, one of the things that you told me earlier this morning that I found fascinating was the fact that you and your family are involved with, fairs and events, and like, how did that go? I mean, did you start off with that, or?
Wow, yeah. So I grew up in a traveling carnival in Alaska.
I love that. I love that, though. That's
third
amazing.
Generation. My grandma started the company.
Incredible.
And man, it has been the coolest career. Actually, that wasn't my dream job. I wanted to run away from the carnival and sell insurance.
Don't people want to run to the carnival? Isn't that how it normally works?
Yeah, I've heard that.
They want to leave insurance and run to the carnival?
Yeah. But when you know the carnival
Yeah, sure.
intimately, it becomes more of a product. But yeah, so that's what we get to do. We just finished with the Alaska State Fair up in Palmer, and I literally left Alaska last week, picked up an old cab-over semi-truck, drove it down from Tacoma, and I got here, decided it was way too hot, and I guess I'm going further south, so it's going to get hotter. But
then it'll get better.
It is
again.
really heckin' hot right now. We are in the middle of a high pressure zone in the southwest, and it is unseasonably warm.
Yeah, Phoenix has had, and Prescott has had record heat day after day after day.
It was like 34 degrees when I left Alaska. But I knew when I was driving that truck through like Central Oregon and Idaho that I was going to get hot. So I'm like, okay, cherish this cold. Because, when you're just so hot, you're like, I wish to never be hot again.
Yeah.
And then when you're super, super cold, you're like, I never want to be cold ever, ever again. Another long story. I rode a motorcycle to the Arctic in the middle of the winter on like studded tires on the ice road.
Yeah.
And while I was on my way up there, I'm like, I will.
Did you go up to Dead Horse with it?
I made it to the Yukon River.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It's the whole series of events. I'm lucky to have made it out of that one. But I was like, I will never complain about being too hot again. Here I am complaining about being too hot.
Okay, so we're not going to let you get past that story. So how did you barely get out of that situation? So you're at the Yukon River in winter on a motorcycle with studded tires.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Oh, I had just finished up with the Iditarod.
Okay.
I didn't run it. We helped produce the event. It's the fur rendezvous, the fur auction that goes along with it. We set up the carnival there and everything. And I had a bike and I had 2 extra weeks. And I'm like, man, what? I got to do something with this. So I started testing out studs, and I talked to a company called Grip Studs. I'm like, what kind of studs would work great for commuting on asphalt and then maybe going on an ice road somewhere? And they said, well, I don't know, because people just haven't done that before. So I started looking into it, and I hadn't found, and I still can't find, a solo unsupported trip to the Alaskan Arctic Circle by motorcycle in the middle of the winter.
Mm-hmm.
This is in February, which is the coldest portion of our winter up there. And so I studded up.
Didn't Jesse James do something a while ago?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Was that Tuk-Tuk?
He did Tuk-Tuk, but as I understand it, it was basically unload the bike, ride it for 15 minutes, load it back in the trailer, kind of a thing.
Well,
And that was when it was a proper ice. Like
Sure.
riding a motorcycle on ice is
Yeah.
like accomplishable. Riding it on a mixed surface of
It'd be
asphalt,
a lot more
snow.
difficult. Yeah.
So I left from Anchorage on those studs, and I burned out the first set of studs and tires. So I actually had to re-stud while I was on the way and mount a new tire. And that trip from Anchorage up to Fairbanks was really hard. I mean, it primes you for some terrible stuff.
It was
Everything's
like watching
closed
your
along the
friend
way.
torture himself
It
via
was
Instagram.
like being tortured via Instagram. it sucked. And you actually have great traction on studded tires on a bike.
So Type 3 fun all the way.
Type 3, where it just sucks, and it always sucked, and you never look back at it and say, man, that was great.
But you're smiling now. That's the thing about Type 3 fun. When you survive it, it's a
Yeah.
great story.
Yep. So then I left from Anchorage. I left from Fairbanks, and I'm heading up, and I hit ice, and I'm like, finally, I'm here. I'm on the Dalton, and it was great. It was great. Well, it was bright outside, and everything was good, and that was a whole prepping the bike special. It was a KTM 990, so it was a cool bike, but way too much power, way too much going on, had way too many miles on it, and long of that, it got really cold. It was like 63 below, and I lost my clutch because that master or the slave cylinder, it has a real problem, and I slurped that seal in, lost the clutch, and I was severely dehydrated by this point, just because water doesn't stay liquid even when it's up next to your body.
Sure.
And so that made me way more cold. And I was having a problem with a couple of my toes starting to stick together. And I knew that I was starting to freeze things. And my eyes were starting to stick together when they would close. And then the bike just decided that it was going to do some weird stuff. And they say all the time, the way there is optional. The way back is mandatory.
Yeah, sure.
And without a clutch, I was at the Yukon River. I called it like 30 miles south of the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, sure.
And so that being said, there's things that have been left undone up in the north.
Yeah.
But
I'll come drive a truck behind you.
I know I've gotten that, but
I mean, that's kind of I think it's cool the way you did it, but
it was terrible. No, I wouldn't do that again. I would have somebody come like maybe half an hour behind me, so
Yeah,
I could
sure.
say I still did it by myself. Because you got to carry all your own fuel.
Yeah,
carry
sure.
your
well,
own
then
fuel,
you could
carry
push
water.
a little bit
You
more.
could.
Like if you were, hey, come get me, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
You've
Super danger.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's people on that road that would help you.
I mean, maybe, but you don't have any express agreement. They're rolling. Who knows if they need momentum for the next hill? They have some wicked uphills,
Yes,
like
very much
grades
so.
that are like 8-10% that
Yeah.
wouldn't be legal here. And I mean, who knows if they're going to be able to stop if they wanted to.
Yeah, I remember when I drove that road in the wintertime, well, twice, I guess, but I just remember the trucks can't stop.
Right.
Like they have every turn is timed, every hill, every speed. They don't, it looks like that they're speeding at times, but usually they're doing what they have to do in order to get through there.
Yeah. And nobody wants you on that road. Nobody wants you on that road in the summer, let alone during the winter.
Right.
And they're talking about you. Hey, there's this idiot on the way up. There was 3 guys on bicycles that were doing it the same time I was doing it. 2 made it. 1 had to be flown out.
Wow.
I mean, it was super cold, and I planned that because I knew that the road would be the most stable. I didn't want there to be any pockets of water or anything.
Yeah, sure.
And ultimately, I made it back, and I was just shocked, and the bike froze up solid, and I had to leave it in Fairbanks. and flew back. And I was like just sitting at the airport bar, stunned, like looking around at people. It's reverse culture shock, but to the max. You're like, I almost just had a bad time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is there somebody that wants to talk to me about this? Like,
Sure.
So I flew back and made some promises to family about doing things again, and here I am. So
Doing things again,
but we only have, I decided that they each have one promise, and I'm like, I promise you I will never go to the Arctic solo again.
And a special thanks to Dometic for their support of this week's podcast. I have personally used their fridges on multiple continental crossings and find them to be lightweight, durable, and efficient. Dometic has just upgraded their CFX5 line with their new VIP insulation panels, which improve efficiency and reduce power draw. They have also introduced a variable speed motor to reduce unit noise by up to 5 decibels. That makes a big difference when you're sleeping next to the fridge. The USB port is now 18 watts for even faster device charging and an even more refined fridge design and color. The CFX5 will cool down to -7 degrees Fahrenheit and has a 3-stage low voltage cutoff to protect your battery while running on either 12 or 24 volts DC and 110 or 240 volts AC. These fridges are durable and even won our most recent Overland Journal Editor's Choice Award. Find out more information at dometic.com.
And then I'm thinking of all the caveats in my head. Solo, exactly. I'm like, technically. So that's one of the promises.
All right, so give us the overview about what's going to happen starting this afternoon. So
well, it started this morning. I rolled out from Wickenburg in the morning and on a bike that I really haven't gone through all the way. I got it from a good friend of mine, Paul Stewart, and I'm going to go. I went up the hill to come see you guys. And then from here towards Beatty, Nevada, and the Moscow Moto Dusty Lizard, which I'm excited for. I've been to them before. And it's a good event, super positive.
Yeah,
they're great people.
Good people.
Yeah, really, really good people. Yeah,
I mean, Pete is just legit. Like, to be a business owner, but then maintain that level, not only of personal challenge, but like authenticity in the space is pretty rare to find.
Mm-hmm. You know what his first job was?
No.
Traveling carnival.
That's awesome.
Because it was the only people that would hire him as a child. It has changed. It has changed since then. We do everything we need to do, but back in the day, that's how it was. Yeah. So he and I hit it off.
That's great.
Over that, but so then I'm going to go to Beatty, and then from there roll. I guess it'd be east and south through Texas, kind of just boot scooting it, just getting it to where I need to, crossing through McAllen. And in
so
Texas.
Why Texas over Baja? Just because?
I've already been to Baja.
Yeah, I guess.
I spent a couple months in Baja. I love Baja. And the problem with spending a couple months in Baja is that you could spend a couple more months in Baja. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of little back ridges. I mean, you're going along the spine of a mountain, so you're getting all the ecology and everything is changing all the time. You're like, do I want this ocean or do I want this ocean? And I have to skip the temptation so I'm not stuck there. So I'm just going to burn through, really get into Mexico fast, as deep as I can.
Are you going to go see Copper Canyon or anything like that?
Probably not on this trip. I'm trying to talk to the BDR folks about getting that new BDR X that they have near Big Bend and knocking that out with a buddy. I've never been to Big Bend before.
Yeah, I haven't either.
And I mean, I guess it's really dark, and I'm excited about that. But and then rolling in and then going to Belize, seeing some friends, Emma at the Alternative Adventures, the moto hostel there.
Nice.
She put me up once for a number of days while I was there, and I gotta visit again. But
Belize is a really neat spot,
right?
Like it's just, it was only 1984 that the British left. So, and it's on the dollar. It's like it's a very interesting place.
Mm-hmm. And I was there last time a couple years ago. They were just building the EU. It's just building a brand new road from north to south. So it's all there. But there's a couple little border crossings that sneak you back in that are on some maps and aren't on some maps. So like my Apple Maps has it, but my paper adventure maps don't.
Yeah,
and I want to see that. It's like it's that in between, the transition that we lost here in this country, or even in Mexico. It's not as, I guess, brutal as it used to be, or even Alaska. The Alcan back in the day used to be crazy.
Yeah.
Today you can do it in a Honda Civic.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's good for the people who need to get to Alaska. But as the world develops and gets more civilized, we have to go a little farther out of our way to find those places that are just right there on the cusp on developing, where I can still get gas, even if it's in a pop bottle, but something might happen.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Fortunately, there's still a lot of that out there.
Yeah. You just have to go far.
Yeah. You just have to try something different.
And from a kid from Alaska to even be able to drive to another state blows my mind, let alone being able to go to another country.
Home is going to end up being very far away.
Wherever you are. But we are in a place where we're going to cities with people.
Yeah.
There's restaurants, and you'll find the things you need along the way. And people are going to help you. And that's the cool thing about the bike, is that, you're
more exposed in every way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And everybody knows it. If you come in and you're just like, a tall kid from wherever, USA, everybody thinks you're fine if you're in some big rig. But when you're in a bike, people want to bring you in, and people want to help you, and they know, and you're out there. And
I think a motorcycle is very identifiable. I mean, it's the first vehicle that any family would get, even if they are still on a low income scale. So like motorcycles seem a lot more relatable than kind of rolling through in some big expedition camper or something like that. I don't think people...
What we do.
Right, exactly.
I'm looking at you guys, though, and I'm like, man, a shower would be really nice right now, or a refrigerator, because I don't trust this, cup of yogurt in my backpack anymore.
Yeah, sure.
But so that's why you need to help support people like us. When I roll up and I need water and I just want to pitch everything out. Who's it? Graham Bell was talking about like the hierarchy of adventure vehicles in one of his books. And he's like, these guys, help them. It's like they're going to show up and they're not going to have anything.
Yeah.
Feed them, give them a beer, do whatever you can. And we're always looking down at the next guy. And I'd say looking down like the guy who's on a bicycle or walking.
He's better.
That guy's crazy.
And he's also having a better experience. I mean, if you think about someone on a bicycle, and now the one thing about the bicycle though is that it's just so much more dangerous.
Yeah.
Like of any form of travel, overland travel, the bicycle is by far the most dangerous.
I can see that, yeah.
Because on a motorcycle you're traveling with the speed of traffic, whereas on a bicycle you're getting passed all day long, and you're hoping that someone isn't on Instagram when they're doing it, So
the big eye-opening thing for me with bicycle travel was when we did Tuck, and we were complaining about bugs from our earth roamer, right? From the literal golden tower, we are having a bad time. And then we realized that the people that were riding the bicycle, the bugs were faster than them, so they could never escape.
Yes, never escape.
Ever.
That's terrible.
I couldn't do it. I have so much, I in that moment.
Yeah.
So much more, like I always had respect because it's obviously a challenging thing, but the personality and the actual challenge would just be,
But they're just so much more immersed.
Yeah.
For them, a 60-mile day is a long day.
Sure.
And they've only seen 60 miles of a country. So they're gonna experience so much more. They're gonna get such a better resolution of a place than me cruising along at 100 kilometers an hour.
And isn't that what it's all about, though? It's like, if I'm gonna be happy, I want to be happier than I normally am. And if it sucks, I want it to suck worse than it sucked for anybody else, because that's the most complete experience.
Yeah.
Like, we grow through that suffering. I don't think there's anything I've ever been through that's been really terrible, and there's been a lot that I haven't come out on the other side and said, man, I'm going to add that. Like, yeah, it still sucks, and there's the scars of it and everything, but we're moving, and it's making our human experience more colorful because it was difficult.
We're supposed to do hard things.
Yeah.
And most people spend their entire life trying to avoid it.
Right. Yeah. So like right now, I'm going through all my medical stuff. Like I was just telling you guys, I now wear hearing aids, and I got to figure out what a border crossing. I never crossed a Central American border as someone who only hears out of one ear. what does that look like when somebody who not only speaks a different language, but who can speak and hear is asking me for a certain piece of paper, and I'm trying to wave them off and just say, no, I'm deaf, and I can't have this conversation with my helmet on, and I need to humanize myself for you so that you can get the right paperwork so that we can work our way through this.
Yeah.
That's one of the new things that came of it. And so now I'm going into Death Valley. I was telling you last time I was there, I got hit by a car.
Yeah.
And I can talk about that, but after
You got hit by a Jeep going 70 miles an hour, right?
Yeah, from behind. Just not paying attention on a road that you can see infinite in front and behind.
Wow.
And he saw my signals and my hand signal. I always hand signal, and he smoked me in my head, dented the hood. I was wearing a good helmet, but I got up, and then I eventually made my way to Mayo Clinic Scottsdale, and it took 3 days to get there. And the help of just so many friends. My shout out to my friends is Paul Stewart came and picked me up. He found me on the side of the road, like I didn't know who I was, where I was, in the middle of a rainstorm, and then Mike with Takamoto, those guys brought me in and just let me sleep. And we probably shouldn't do that, but
right.
But I was in really bad shape, and I didn't even know it. So I got into Mayo Scottsdale, and we found that I was bleeding internally in 2 places. I had a pretty severe concussion. My brain was swelling. My jaw was dislocated. My shoulder had been dislocated. And 2 months of physical therapy got my foot back in the right spot. My knee braces and my Alpenstar Tech 10 saved my leg. So then 2 months after that, I went in because I was having some problems hearing. And they said, well, you're profoundly, you have profound hearing loss in your left ear at high frequency, which I thought, I don't need high frequency anyway. Turns out it has everything to do with speech processing and like canceling out background noise. So that being said, I've got some really cool hearing aids. I didn't bring them on this trip because they cost as much as my bike, but I've got that now, and we're working our way forward and just trying to do the whole like brain injury survivor thing and hearing problem thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. Yeah, my poor mom.
What promise did you have to tell her after that one?
She got her
I will
one
not
already.
ride solo in Death Valley on a straight road in front of a Jeep Wrangler.
On Tuesdays.
On Tuesdays.
No, it was Good Friday. It was this Good Friday.
Wow.
Yeah, literally. And no, my promise to her a long time ago was I wouldn't own and fly small airplanes because in Alaska we have a lot of issues with those. And whether it's safe or not, they say a pilot always, like, if he's going to die, it's because he gets hit by a car on his motorcycle on his way to his plane.
Yes.
So, it is what it is. But we're working our way through life together. And
there's so many things about what you're getting ready to do that is awesome. But one of the ones is that you've had this bike for 3 days.
Oh, yeah. I think 3 days, yeah. Yeah, I burned down to... so the story about how I got this bike, this is from Paul Stewart, RTW Paul, and he's been around the world now, I think 3 times, and he's on his way on another one, on a little Honda CT 125.
Which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
It is. It's beautiful, too. You would love it.
I want one.
It's red and chrome, and it has the matching, like milk box on the back.
Oh, awesome.
It is cool.
The milk box is the...
I know. And just showing that you can do it. And so he's already been around the world once on this bike, and it kind of just came back from Argentina. And then he went through it, and I got it, and there's still things that need to be done, but I'm still burning his old gas. I'm like, this thing's backfiring and like dying a little bit. I'm like, all right, this gas is from maybe another country. Yeah. I have no idea. But
how big is the tank on it? It looks like a big tank.
It's got 2 tanks. It has the big Cherby Desert tank.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm usually really good with this stuff because I am a technical person. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I got on this, and I think it's like a 3.5 or 4 gallon tank.
It looks pretty big. It looks almost like 5 gallons.
My knees have to kick out.
Yeah, sure.
And then it still has the KTM spare tank in the back.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
A couple gallons there.
It's all there. Yeah, I think it
They
actually.
do a spare tank for those?
It's off the rally. Oh. It's the back rally tank, and it has its own. Yeah, you're
Like-
thinking
like
all
my
the,
old one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that fits on there.
Yeah, it's that fiberglass tank, that thick,
The whole
heavy thing.
seat replacement thing?
It is a
Or is
side.
this an earlier one?
Side saddle. It's probably older.
Yeah, okay.
It's pretty legit. It feels more like it's made out of a canoe.
I'm just so excited for the bike that you're taking because, In my kind of relationship with you, I met you when you had the 990. And then you went to a 690. And now you're on a 500 EXC.
I have a beta trials bike.
Yeah, my old one. Yeah. How do you like that?
I have ridden probably
it's 300
miles of single track on
That's
it.
That's a lot.
The tires are flat completely. I mean, the desert, the Explorer tank is missing all of its hardware now, and so it's off because it was held on with one. I did the entire Dusty Lizard in Moab on it.
Yeah,
and just it is an amazing bike. It makes you feel like a pro rider.
Yeah, you're Graham Jarvis when you get on that thing on single track,
100%
with some level of talent.
And it makes you a better rider on big bikes.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Knowing that you can throw your weight around. I'm a slight guy anyway, but being able to move around and do that stuff it elevated the accentuating your body to do what you need to do has been really cool.
Yeah.
But, and now I'm on the 500.
Yeah. And I think what's cool about that is I've always thought, when you're in America, you want a big bike, right? You're traveling big distances at speed. But the further south you go, the more you get into your trip, the more this bike is going to come alive. And I'm really...
Especially if you want to be off pavement.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great. It doesn't feel like the 690. And, obviously the frame is different. Everything's different on it.
It's what, 60, 70 pounds lighter than...
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, because what's the quoted weight on like the 690? They say like 310, 320?
Yeah, it's like 310. So it's a 100-pound difference. Yeah. I think the dry weight is like 225, 230 on the 500.
Wow.
And I mean, it's got a lot of crap on it.
And those motors are actually like quite reliable.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, which is good because it's almost got 30,000 miles on it.
Well, it's been around the world once, so it knows the way. It knows the way.
Yeah, it does.
So, are you going to be camping a lot, or are you planning on hitting hostels as much as possible? What's kind of your plan around that?
My plan is to take it day by day.
Yeah.
Central America. Central America. It just makes sense to stay in hostels or
so cheap.
Camper.
That's why I was asking.
Cheap, and you get to it's secure.
Yeah.
And really having running water is great.
Yeah.
The more time I spend outside, the more I want running water everywhere I go.
Yeah.
But then when I get down past Colombia, like Ecuador, I'll probably still stay in places. I have a sick hookup in Ecuador. The guy who owns the motorcycle shop up in Alaska, it's actually called the Motorcycle Shop. His wife is from Ecuador.
Oh, nice.
And her father-in-law is the vice president of the country. And so I'm really excited to get to Ecuador. He doesn't
Ecuador's
know.
Great.
The country of Ecuador doesn't know I'm coming yet. But
well, now they do.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. But then as we get further, I think it's going to get closer and closer to what I think is normal, to like Alaska.
Yeah,
style.
for sure.
And for that, it's just pull off somewhere and go camp. So I have my camp stuff with me. But like we were saying earlier, if I'm riding the way I'm riding right now, if I could go naked right now, I 100% would. I would leave everything. No tools, no.
Yeah.
I left my big camera. I was looking at it this morning, and I'm like, there's just not a place for this in my life.
The problem is that the phones are so good. Like I really geek out on cameras. And we both just got the new...
The 16 Pro.
16 Pro. And with the button that it has, the camera button,
nice.
It's nice. It's maybe a little bit awkward, but do you need it anymore?
I don't know. My mirrorless is really, really nice, and it takes better video and everything. But then it doesn't have internal stabilization, so I really need a proper tripod.
The size of that in relation to it's 10% of your volume that you can carry with you on that motorcycle when you already have to carry a cell phone.
Yeah. So I got.
So what are you going to use for a camera?
I got the phone. I've got a GoPro as well.
Oh, nice.
I hate GoPros though. I actually just hate taking photos of stuff. I just like it. There's no reason for me. It's not my job. So why encumber my trip by having to photograph it? Except that I know someday I want to go back through these. And
you have to document it for yourself.
Yeah.
Like that's like in a while of being a part of this community, I've talked to like so many people, but I've also seen so many people do the same thing. Like, I don't know if it's like they want like a purpose for their travel, and I'm gonna start a blog, or it used to be a blog, now it's Instagram or whatever. I don't know if it's like if it's worth it. I don't know if that's like, I think people should be more selfish with their time when they travel. Like, not everything has to be documented.
I agree.
Right.
If you don't have to do it for your job, think long and hard about if it's worth it. I think a lot of times people will start a blog or they'll start a YouTube channel because it's just part of the human ego. Is just this desire to amplify your experience to others and get some recognition for that. I think it's totally normal, but just know why you're doing it. You have to just be honest with yourself of like, actually, I just want a whole bunch of my friends to know how cool I am, and then and then do that. But be open with yourself about it.
Like, I have an Instagram. It's got like 800 people in it. It's guys like you. It's people I actually know. And
your Instagram feels more personal. Like I don't want to say that you're a selfish traveler, but for the purposes of the conversation we just had, like that's how I'm going to frame it. It's like you do it for you.
Sure.
Like you're not, you don't strike me as someone that does something for other people.
No, and again, I don't need to. Like I have sponsors, but my sponsors are, I'm offering something to them, and it's not content.
It seems like they come to you though, and it's more of a friendship thing for
100%
you.
is. Well, and it's my motivation. So like Climb, they say, hey, we've got this thing. We want you to use it and give us feedback on it.
Yeah, sure.
For me, I can just go out and buy whatever I want to buy. But this gives me the motivation. Oh, now I owe it. Now I owe it to somebody to do something more. If it was up to me, I would stay home.
Yeah.
I have a beautiful home and people who love me and a great church, and I don't need this.
Yeah.
But it's when I'm sitting down and I'm praying about what I need to be doing, that little voice comes in that says, you need to just stay here where you're comfortable. You need that. And I'm like, I just got to reject that and say, all right, that is exactly the temptation that I don't need.
Yeah.
So let's run from that. And how do I do that? I got people like Climb. I got Takomoto, people who are saying, we believe in you. And also, we need something from you.
Yeah, sure.
In this case, it's
a partnership.
beta testing.
It's a partnership. And that's the thing about motorcycles. I've never really understood the sponsorship route with motorcycles because everything is so cheap. Yeah. Like, an entire motorcycle with all of the gear is less than the tires on your earth roamer.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing. I mean, the bike.
Quite literally, I was looking at
the bags,
downgrading my beadlocks to a single piece tire, and it was $14,000.
There you go.
That's insane.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well, and the more
you
more
could
than
buy
just
a
the
motorcycle
stuff.
and ride it to Ushuaia for that.
That's right.
Sure.
That's right.
But more than just the stuff. I mean, stuff is stuff, and you can buy stuff. You can't buy relationships.
Yeah.
So like, I can't come to you guys and hang out, and like, I can't purchase this. What we're doing right now. This is because Matt and I have been friends for a long time, and I took the time to go hang out with him, and we talked. And like, you were on your trip, and you were very vulnerable about what was going on in your trip and how you were enjoying it. And I was like, okay, cool. This is a real connection.
Yeah.
And we have all of our friends, and I can, like, with this bike. A bike's a bike. You can take a bike around the world. Doesn't really matter what CF Moto 250. People are doing it.
Yep.
Tim and Marissa Notier have been in Indonesia on a really terrible Bajaj 250 two-up.
Yeah.
Doing amazing stuff. And what I'm buying with this bike is rider support. I'm buying pretty much years of blog posts about mechanical everything. It's super documented. And I have this relationship now with Mike at Takomoto and with Paul and I can now say also, hey, this is RTW Paul's bike. This is the bike.
It's on its second lap around the world.
Yeah. And it felt like a passing of a torch.
Yeah.
And that's
cool.
That's more of that relationship side. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I don't need another widget to put on there. If anything, I want to take stuff off. And that's the first thing I did was start stripping things off it and making it mine. So
and you put some new decals on it, so it looks good. It's got some of your graphics on there. It looks awesome.
That's the first thing you need to do, obviously. Have stickers made and decals.
Yeah, I saw RTW Chase. Is that your new Instagram handle?
Yeah. It was mucho fasto, and there was a story with that. It's just some bad some Baja Spanish. And now it's RTW Chase because it was RTW Paul, and it kind of gives you an idea of what we want to accomplish. Which I don't even know if RTW is going to happen.
Yeah,
I am scared of it. And
you're taking it stage by stage. Yeah.
Yep. Because I still have to work, and
Yeah.
I've got a company that needs help run and everything. And I think that's a more reliable way to do it than just burn through. Because I've been on long trips. We've all been on trips for months or even years at a time. And you get burnt out after a few months. You're like, I would really like to, brush my teeth in the same sink every day, or receive mail, or see somebody that we're not always having this transactional relationship where you're like, oh, I am Chase, and this is my highlight reel.
Yeah.
We're coming in, you're like, hey, Matt, I know you. Let's just sit down and have a meal and like talk about life beyond whatever is just going on at the moment.
You can burn out on travel. Like, I know that I had definitely, I've been there. I mean, I think you saw me there in Alaska, to be honest. Like, I didn't have a great time on that trip. I was in a weird place.
Yep.
But I've been doing this my entire adult life. Like, that has always been the goal. Like, and you need to break, and I think it's important to recognize that, right? Like, if you're in a bad place, don't expect travel to fix it.
Sure.
But
No, that's true. And I think that everybody travels differently. Some people love just living on the road permanently. Usually it's older folks that are retired where they don't have a reason to do that. Maybe their kids are gone and everything else, and they're just they're in a big camper and they're just meandering their way around the world in their home. And then there's people, I mean, like me, I'm in the same boat that you are. I prefer to travel for about 6 to 8 weeks at a time and then be home for 3 or 4 months and then rinse, wash, repeat over. I've done it for 20 years and it's kind of the perfect tempo for me, because I do like being involved with my business. I do like working with my team. I do like kind of aggregating these experiences into content and my own reflections. So yeah.
Do you normally travel by yourself, or what is your style of travel?
I don't like to travel by myself. I really do prefer to travel with others, because I am very relational. Like I do like to have people in my life on a regular basis. But I've done solo motorcycle in Colombia and in Ecuador and Peru, and that was life-changing too. Just like being in your own head for days at a time is life-changing as well. But I prefer having the experience with someone else.
Yeah. I think there's a healthy medium for that. Last time I was in Belize, I went with some friends, and they just weren't having fun in the right way, to my mind, and it was straining the relationship. And you just have to be able to say, all right, guys, this is not what I'm here for, so I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to go by myself.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. I travel predominantly by myself, mostly because at my age and stage in life, people have significant others, or they have kids or jobs that matter, and they just can't take a couple months at a time off to go somewhere. Yeah. I am jealous for my time off too. I shouldn't be taking a couple months off either. I should be at home grinding or whatever. But we know that, like, of all the resources in the world, money, you can always get more money. Time, you can never get more time.
Yeah, you have the same amount of time in a day as Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett, billionaire, he cannot buy more time.
Nope.
And the thing is you wouldn't trade places with him either.
No.
If you could get $1 billion, you'd also be...
wait, I just realized he's like 90 something. I started laughing.
But that's the point. That's the point is like, somebody says, I want to be a billionaire. Well, you could, like, what if you traded place with Warren Buffett? Now you're 90 something years old. Yeah. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It's actually the time that matters in our health. So if we make that the focus, we usually do a little better.
Yeah, you can make a lot of money and be very unhappy.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And hedonism is like something that it will burn you out.
Yeah.
Like you can have excess, and you got to realize, like, oh, I better back away from that cliff.
Right. And spend some time with some billionaires. Their day is not better. Their food is always cold. Their flights are always delayed. They have no autonomy. And it's not the way that I would like to live. It might be great for some people, and that's cool.
Everybody's got their thing. You just got to know what yours is.
Yeah.
And it seems like you've figured that out. And so let's talk a little bit about what your vision is. I know you're taking it as it comes and step by step. But so this next segment, you're going to go do the Moscow Moto thing. Then you're not going to take Baja, which I think is a cool change in pace.
Yeah.
So where are you going to head through Mexico generally, and then
Brownsville, McAllen, Texas.
Okay, nice.
And then work my way into Belize, work my way south through there, just kind of like hopscotch borders. I'd like to hit some of the. It's always better to me personally to go through borders that aren't as well traveled.
And do it on a Sunday.
Yeah,
it's so good.
And do the best you can, exactly. And these are all places I haven't gone yet, so I don't really know what that experience is going to look like. And part of it in preparing for this was I haven't researched, the crap out of everything, because I want to not experience the fullness of everything like now.
Yeah.
I know I want it to happen. I do have borders circled on my maps. I do have cities underlined that I'd like to visit. I do have cities X out that I definitely don't want to visit. I can't think of what they are off the top of my head, but they're in my maps.
So here's what I'm so excited about, right? Is you're actually, in my opinion, approaching this very much as like an experienced traveler. You're just kind of going with it. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're traveling for people,
100%.
And like, yeah, you don't really know where you're going to go in Mexico, but you're going to meet somebody here and you're going to have community and they're going to tell you where to go. Mm-hmm. And you can't plan these trips entirely on the internet. Like, you can create resources for yourself, right?
High points.
Yeah. Yep. Like, okay, like I want to see,
Copan, whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is. But I think you just gotta, what I'm so excited for you is that you're just throwing yourself into it and you're like surrendering yourself to the process.
Yeah.
And I think that that's hard to explain to people. You know, like most people are, I mean, even in the Pan Am trip that I'm planning for the future, it's very, I'm not going to say structured, but I like to plan.
Sure.
You're enjoying that process.
I enjoy that. Yeah. I also have somebody else that I travel with. So when you're just on your own, like you do have more freedom, right? Two people even, like I love my wife, but we have different interests on certain things, right? Where you can just go with it. You can meet somebody. Oh yeah, you should check this out. And then you're going to, and also talk to this guy down here.
Yeah.
And you're just going to kind of hop around, and I really like that.
Well, if you build yourself, I need to be here by this time, then you're always rushing, and there's always like a feel and anticipation that I got to get to the next place. The way I'm traveling means that some days I get to really chill out and I get to do some things, and I plan Sundays off and I plan Wednesdays to really take some time. That's when I have my Bible study. And then the rest of the time, some days, that means you got to boot scoot. You got to take 400 or 500 mile days.
Yeah.
But you do that. It's like that time is your money in the bank. It's saying that if I have gotten to this point by here now, then I now have time assets that I can use up. I just know that I've got 6 weeks on this trip and I got to go back to Alaska for a minute. I need to make it as far south as I can. And the plan would really be to make it into Bogota, which I don't think that's too big of a deal because
totally feasible.
Central America. But you could get trapped. Like I could say that
you're either going to make it to Bogota or you're going to make it to like
Veracruz or something. Exactly. Yeah. So that's
Now a couple just like little tactical questions. So you've got your yellow fever card with you because they're going to ask for that at borders.
No.
Okay, you might want to look into that.
Yeah.
The your title is the motorcycle titled in your name, like exactly on your license? Because in Peru you can't get in if it's titled in anybody else's name.
Yeah. No, I've got the bike situated. I still need to figure out insurance along the way, but everybody does that. You just buy it.
Yeah, you just get it at the border.
Yeah, that's the thing with the bike is that I mean, it would be a shame if you wrote the bike off, but it's not going to ruin you.
No.
Mexico insurance you can get online ahead of time.
Baja Bound is great, exactly.
Yeah, that's who I use.
Yeah. And the bike is cool. And actually the real problem you have when you're crossing borders, specifically Mexico, is they try to just say, okay, cool, see ya, goodbye. And you're like, no, I need my tip. I need that import to get to the other side because they assume that you're just going in. So you have to like really harass them to get the right paperwork.
That's right.
But otherwise, everybody usually just burns you through because what are you going to carry over with you?
Yeah.
Unless there's something that they're really worried about specifically, and that changes. But people are in these places, and people do this every single day.
Every day.
And, just because I'm from Alaska where everything is a 5-day drive, that doesn't change when I get down there. Now I'm a local. Now I'm in that spot.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I do have a friend who's going along that same sort of route. He's from Brazil, and he speaks fluent Spanish. So we're going to hopefully link up and cross borders together.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, Matias. I met him walking. He was walking from Dead Horse to Pahrump, Nevada. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he is a crazy person.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. But we've been friends for a number of years now, and he's on a T7, and we have a similar way of travel. You're like, hey, just during the day, I don't really want to see anybody.
Yeah.
So let's meet up every 3 days or so.
Yeah, sure.
And that's enough. Have somebody watching your stuff while you're going through the paperwork, and that goes a long way.
I think it's nice to be on the same route with somebody, but not necessarily doing the day-to-day.
Sure.
Like when we did Australia, we did it with David Prittis. Not necessarily with him, but we were doing the trip at the same time. And we did the telegraph track together because we needed
Some support.
Some support.
Yeah.
You know, when we did some really remote areas like the Gulf of Carpentaria, well, okay, we kind of like connected then, but we were always within a day of each other.
Yeah.
And that was really nice.
And the world gets really small when you're on those tracks, like Baja. You run into the same people over and over and over again in Baja because you're all going up and down the same road. The Pan American, you're basically, if you're on that road together, you're starting it with a bunch of people. You're in community with these people now, working your way up and down. Some places, there's only one route anyway. Yeah. And I'm on my way to Overland Embassy. And then once I get there, I'm on my way to Donkey Sunrise. And it's all going to be the exact same people. These are like moto hostels and transport companies. And we're all going through the same places, having a very similar experience.
Yep.
So you're naturally going to connect with these people. You'll connect with travelers or with locals, but you'll connect with a lot of travelers. And who knows, you might hit it off. Be willing to be flexible.
Yeah.
Say, that guy, he's my kind of dude. We're tight now. And you never know, 15 years from now, you might still be best friends.
Yeah, that's right.
I've met some of my closest friends are people I met traveling. You know, there's just like, I think there's something to it.
It creates a filter. It
Yeah.
just creates a filter of all of the people in the world. They happen to be wanting to do a lot of the same thing you're doing. You're doing.
Yeah, my buddy Ronnie, we met because we were sailing to the same place. And we're like, yeah, let's just buddy boat over. And we met, and we were on our way over to the Bahamas. And we did the Bahamas, and we were there together for 3 years. Anchoring next to each other, basically sharing experiences. And then we got back, and I mentioned that I was going to be going to Baja. And he goes, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm coming with. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you'll need a chase truck. So I was like, okay, all right. Well, I didn't invite you, but you can come. I think you're cool, all right. And then I mentioned that I was going to be riding from Alaska to Arizona and then doing the Transamerica Trail. And he's like, okay, well, I think I can meet you in Oklahoma. I'm like, once again, dude, you weren't invited. He's like, yeah, but I show up. And he did. He showed up on an 89 Honda Transalp, and we did the Transamerica Trail.
That's awesome.
That's ridiculous. And on this one, I mentioned to him, knowing 100%, and he's like, well, I can't really do that whole trip, but I'll buy a bike in Colombia, and we'll do the second half together. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I've got Ronnie meeting me, and we're going to go buy a bike for him.
That's awesome.
In Medellin, and then we're going to go south to Ushuaia together. And then he might sell the bike or whatever, and he's a boat captain, so he has a more flexible thing too. But he's just, I mean, we've shared a tent together at 14,000 feet. We joke about this all the time. You're like, a 2-person tent with 2 guys in it is an intimate situation.
That's right.
You're like, Ronnie, you're breathing on my neck. it's like, well, I might as well hug you at the same time. I'm like, gosh, dude. So yeah, it's good to have buddies, and it's nice to have the boundaries of, these are the times we're together, and these are the times when we're not.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, so that's good.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit about living on a sailboat for 3 years in the Bahamas. So you said it was a 38-foot?
Yeah, it was a Beneteau 373. I rebuilt it. It was damaged in Katrina.
Yeah, sure.
And
there were a lot of those boats for sale.
Yeah, well, this one really wasn't for sale. It was just kind of beat up, sitting on the dock, and I was getting pissed looking at it because I was living in another boat next to it.
So you just started working on it.
Yeah, I called the guy. And I'm like,
you called the guy.
Yeah. He was a heart surgeon up north, and he goes, I said, hey, your boat is dangerous to people around you. The dock lines are all rotten, whatever. And he goes, well, can you just buy me some lines? And I'm like, yeah, I'll buy you some lines. And I'm like, well, and your power cord is in the water too, and it's probably eating everybody's anodes. So I'm like, I need this. And then next thing I know, I'm like, the thing's got to be sailed. Someone's got to sail this because a boat needs to be sailed. The bottom's getting all crusty.
Yeah, sure.
And that turned into me sailing and racing, and I raced another boat called the Navigator, and another boat called Sedusant, and another boat called Hot Pursuit, a J boat, and then just got into it. And the first time I left the lake, which was Lake Pontchartrain, with my boat, was on the way to the northern Bahamas, Abacos, Cuba, dry tortugas, and that was the first time that boat ever left that lake.
Wow.
And I was gone for 3 years.
Wow.
So that was...
What did you learn from that experience?
Pack more beer. No, it was that everything, even when things are going bad, like when you're running your boat up for the first time on sandy bottoms, or you don't know the tides and you wake up and your boat's literally on its side.
Yeah.
There's a way to get yourself out of that eventually. Also, I learned that I don't like being hot all the time, but man, that was an interesting trip. And actually there was times when I wasn't doing it right. I was so wrapped up in the trip or in it being a certain way. And I started hanging out with the people who ran the yachts, all the yachties and stuff. And they had so much fancy stuff at their disposal, and they were trying to live like their owners.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm like, I just want a smaller and smaller boat, and I want a more intimate experience, and I want to go for longer periods of time without showering because it's going to be okay. And so what if
you're in the boat by yourself.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you can handle your own company.
Yeah, totally. Or the company of others in similar
sure.
situations. And,
Sure.
And I was trying to make it as comfortable. I'm like, I'm going to fire up the generator. I'm going to run the air conditioner. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to get myself all ready. When really I should have been spearfishing more, or doing whatever. Being on land more. Or those are the things that I cherish. Getting stuck in the dinghy in low tide.
Yeah.
Islands, they have a high tide and low tide on either side, so the tide changes, and that feeling, like the feeling of a motorcycle when the temperature changes or the smell changes coming into a place, the way that we're on Earth and our experience, we've controlled it. Right now we're in a nice climate controlled area.
Yeah.
The outside doesn't matter to me right now because I have defeated it while we're in here.
Right.
But the ocean doesn't allow you to do that no matter how big your boat is.
Yeah.
You're always at the mercy of whatever cloud you're sailing under. I don't trust clouds. Like every one of them is its own little pillar of amazing power.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing, the difference between sailing and overlanding. Mm-hmm. Sailing is just a harder version of overlanding, and there's no escape.
Yep.
So the difference with overlanding is that you're able to just pull over in bad weather, or you pull under an overpass or whatever. If you're on a motorcycle, you could stop and get off the bike.
Sure.
If you're on a boat, you're in it until it's done.
Yep.
Whether you're done or it's done.
Yep.
Like there is no escape.
And I've had those. I've had those experiences. I was following a storm front through the Gulf of Mexico, and my outhaul, which is the line that holds your sail out, it just exploded. I mean, there's so much tension on these things. I mean, it's a 55-foot mast. There's horsepower there because the boat itself was like 38,000 pounds. So you're rolling along at like 8 knots, and all of a sudden it, in a moment, changes to something that's like very frightening. There's
so
a lot of noises.
The boom would have
the boom's flopping around.
Yeah, sure.
I lose steerage. I'm sleeping on deck with autopilot going, and my sail is luffing like crazy, and it's slapping things around. And those lines, they're not attached to nothing. They're attached to now small pieces of sharp, metal and stuff. And so you're there, and it never happens on a nice day on nice weather.
Yep.
It happens at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're the most tired. And I got it under control. And as far as I know, that piece of hardware is still on that boat. I fixed it with like a little soft shackle and a low friction donut.
Sure.
Or low friction ring. And and then once you're done with that, you're like, oh wow, I am capable of so much more.
Yeah. And
you might as well push a little bit further.
And now you know that. Yep. And I can see you're making decisions in your life on a regular basis because you know that, first of all, I need to be doing that because humans are supposed to do hard things. But I've also done a lot of hard things, so now I'm not as afraid.
Sure. It's like
doesn't mean you're not afraid at all. Yep. You're not as afraid.
Yeah. There's a healthy level of fear with the rationale behind it.
Sure.
But it's like you lift a dumbbell once and you're like, I can do that. Maybe I could do a little bit more. But you always know, it's like I think about old man strength, right?
Yeah.
Why are old guys so strong? It's like, well, because they've been there and they know what they can do and what they're capable of.
Yeah.
It's like their muscles might be smaller, but they've already put themselves through it and they can feel that.
They know the leverage.
100%.
They know the leverage.
They know what they're doing. But you don't get cocky with it. Always make sure that you're within the bounds of your safety threshold and everything. Sure. And and there is a point when you just say, this was comfortable and fun. I've had enough.
Yeah.
And we can turn around or just take the easy out. I'd never have a problem with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So then you sounds like you did the Trans-America Trail. Did you do the whole length of it?
No, I had to for time reasons. I skipped the East Coast portion.
Yeah, so did I.
And then really the flat bits.
Yeah.
But I hit it from Oklahoma all the way to Moab.
Sweet.
In like at the end of October, so there's snow on the ground on all the passes.
Sure.
And that was such an amazing trip. I didn't even know. I'm seeing pictures now of like going through Colorado and you see the big buildings and the old mines and stuff.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, there's this and this mine. I'm like, oh, I remember just like happening upon that.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was on the route. And you're not waiting for this next checkpoint. You're just like, oh, I did that with Chichen Itza. I didn't know what Chichen Itza was. And I got there, and this wasn't on a motorcycle. And I'm like, this is an amazing thing. More people should know about this. You're like, well, it's one of the 7 wonders of the world. People do know about this. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Well, it makes sense. It is wonderful.
Yeah.
But the same thing with any mountain pass or little lake that you didn't know about. I didn't know it was there. Now it's there. Now I'm experiencing it. I might as well take off my clothes and jump in.
I also wanted to take a brief moment to thank all of you for listening to the Overland Journal podcast. By listening to this podcast and subscribing to the Overland Journal magazine, you're supporting our employee-owned and veteran-owned business. Impartial reviews and in-depth content like this would not be possible without your support. If you enjoy the podcast, I think you'd really love the print magazine as well. And 100% of that subscription price goes back into creating the content like you're listening to right now. And as a special thank you for your loyalty, we're giving 20% off any subscription. And that even includes our special lifetime subscription, which includes numerous lifetime-only benefits. You can go to overlandjournal.com and use the code OverlandPodcast at checkout. Again, that's code OverlandPodcast at checkout, and that'll give you 20% off. I sincerely appreciate your support.
And you would regret not doing it.
Yeah, the Trans-America Trail was a total surprise for me. That 950 there in the corner, that was what I rode across the Trans-America.
It's a lot of bike for that.
It was too much.
Yeah.
That was how dumb I was at the time. I had ridden dirt bikes, but I thought I'm going to get my first adventure motorcycle. It might as well be a 950.
It says adventure on the side.
I know. So fortunately, the bike and I survived, and I learned a lot on that. But I'd recommend people consider the Trans-America Trail. It's an incredible way to see this country.
Yeah.
And there's a surprise after surprise after surprise on it. Mm-hmm. So,
and it's nice because there are so many little outs. You are going past real towns, and if someday you're like, I just really need, like we were in Tamichi Pass, and I'm like, I am cold. I am really cold, and I could use some good food. Pause in there, get a little cabin for the night, warm up, pull all your stuff out.
Yeah.
Take the time to do that. Something just a point of order when you're traveling so much is taking the time to care for yourself. Because if not, you get run down. How many travelers have you seen they're doing a round the world trip and they get to a place and they're all like sick and they're tired and you've just been pushing yourself so far.
Never lifted. Yeah.
No, wash your feet. Yeah. Now you're on the road for a long period of time. When you were in our normal day-to-day, I wouldn't say that I do this, but you skip brushing your teeth at night. Every once in a while, just go to bed. You're like, well, I had a beer anyway, and it's going to be gross. So when you're traveling, though, you have to be intentional. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to wash my face and brush my teeth, even though I don't have a shower. I'm going to bed, I'm going to go to bed, and I'm going to wash my face and brush my teeth because that will make my overall experience better. And, for me, I'm going to say my prayers. I'm going to stop. I'm going to take that time to make sure that I've gotten myself physically, mentally, and spiritually in line to be able to do this, because then you can open yourself to experience things more. If you're tired, you don't want to push yourself further. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So excited for you, man.
What questions you got here, Matt? Any other things that come to mind?
Well, I think the one thing I'm really excited for your feedback on is flying your bike.
Yeah, me too.
From Panama to Colombia.
Yeah.
I think that it's a really cool thing. You're saying it's like $1,500.
I mean, so far, and so much of it's anecdotal. And that's how I guess kind of the world is, but you hear, well, you know, this is the way it is, and things are dynamic. They're always changing. Pricing is changing. We know that, you know, fuel and tickets and everything is always going up, and we just don't know what that looks like. I'll tell you what it's like when I get there.
Yeah.
You'll be the first one to know. But it could be, if it's $3,000, it's still worth it to me.
Yeah,
to
sure.
the same day fly in and not have to worry about.
I've had a lot of friends go through Alejandro at Overland Embassy, and they've all had really great experiences.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but
I just
positives.
think I like to plug that place because I think it is so important.
Mm-hmm.
One, it's a natural, you know, kind of a junction point or
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
or whatever for travelers. You have to go through there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to have a resource of somebody that is specifically, this is their thing, it's wonderful. It's awesome. And the more business they get, just the better I think it gets for everybody. I think it's really cool. And, you know, for a trip like yours, you know, it saves you 2 weeks.
Yeah, which is going to save you way more than the difference in shipping.
Mm-hmm. Plus, then you're investing in the human. The human product isn't that the bike flies there and flies back. Now I have a friend. I have somebody who is intimately knowledgeable about the things that are going on in that area where I don't know that.
Yeah.
I think about this all the time, and this is a plug for me and anybody who's coming to Alaska. Stop by Alaska, look me up, and I want to talk to you about routes. I want to talk to you about getting all the way up to the Arctic Circle and what Prudhoe Bay actually looks like, and seeing how much of Alaska is actually accessible, because I know that your experience is going to be different when you hear from somebody who's local. I've got to take that knowledge that I have, or that idea that I have about how much I know about Alaska, and assume that other people know more about the place they live in as well.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I should probably listen to them.
Yeah. The power of local knowledge. I mean, it is a universal theme in travel for sure. So how do people follow you?
You can follow on Instagram. It's open. It's RTW Chase. Or you can go to my website, which is muchofasto.com.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's got some of the articles that I've written for Gear Junkie up there. And,
Nice.
And some that I just put out for myself. Like, I do a lot of mechanical stuff because I am a mechanical inspector by trade. So I look at things in a mechanical way. And I love the way things work. I mean, there's beautiful stuff in the world, and we should take our time looking at it.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's been amazing to meet you and to hear your stories. I mean, I know we've met before a couple times briefly, but I'm super proud of what you're doing. I mean, it's awesome.
Oh, thanks, man. And I'm just so happy because I've always been here rubbing shoulders with you guys, or in adjacent to all of my friends doing amazing things. And it feels like I'm finally able to follow in the footsteps of the guys who came before me. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, no,
I'm just so
absolutely.
excited for you.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
get
also
you.
jealous.
And we'll also get you. We'll get you on the podcast when you're done.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Okay.
So a couple years.
A couple years.
Sounds like you do the 3-year theme. So
yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being on the podcast, and we thank you all for listening. And we'll talk to you next time.